You are listening to the commentary of Incase of Emergency episode. I'm going to break down a little bit more in detail on the characters as well as the story. So, the story it's about a guy who is just not doing so well in life. He's had problems in the past, and he causes problems, and he's kind of selfish, and he just, thinks about himself, and he's only what's best for him, and what could he possibly do in life to make it better, and it's usually bad. And so he meets this guy who has this one of the kind faces and has a nice suit and just seems pretty pleasant. And he's kind of like the essence of consciousness in a way, meaning that he wants to guide you to a better living, or at least give you an idea of what you could be doing. And that's the whole point. The elevator, for example, is a judgment device, and Gary is a tenant of that judgment device, meaning that he shows you a path of alternatives of what could be, what was, and what will be, based on your morals, and it's up to you what you want to do or not do. And in this case, Marco doesn't do anything except for refuse to believe and accept. But unfortunately, at the end of the story, he does accept his fate. And unfortunately, it's too late for him. And in a way, Gary is, the main tenet of consciousness of those kind of morals for people who have these kind of problems in their life. And Gary says himself in the story that he himself has done bad things in his time. And in a way, it is the relief of Marco. Marco relieves him from his position as tenant in the elevator, and Marco becomes the next tenant of that situation. And, in a way, Gary kind of hoped it was going to happen this way. Gary wanted this to happen. He wanted to make no decisions or less of a decision of any kind of what Marco would have done, despite all these alternatives that Gary shows him, just so Gary can be relieved. Because Gary, who knows how many elevators that Gary has tried to guide certain people's paths to, and chances are what he did in his past on as far as guiding people in the elevator, well, chances are they probably chose the right path, otherwise he wouldn't be there in the first place. And in this case, when someone chooses the wrong path like Marco, Gary, gets replaced. He gets relieved. He finally gets to leave the elevator, and Marco becomes that, guidance, that person to lead him possibly to different decisions of that person. So, and he shows him that's the purpose of the elevator opens up, and it shows different, vortexes of that person's consciousness, regardless if it was real that they did in the past or wasn't. Just an example of what they could be doing or what they were, and so forth. And this is not a the dead crossing over type thing. This is not like Marco is not dead. Gary is not in a sense dead per se. I mean, it is a supernatural story, but Gary isn't really a dead entity per se. But he has been there, who knows how many years. It could be eons at this point. But having to take these kind of actions with Marco. And Marco, again, he's the type that just wants to get out the ghetto. He wants to, make a lot of money, but, he generally does it in the wrong way possible, and it almost seems like he's almost helpless to find his way out in a way, because he doesn't know really how to get out. He's basically had a rough life this whole time, so he kind of only knows how to do it is by doing wrong things. So basically, like, example of when he kills a woman in the beginning of the story, he just takes the money. He invents these excuses as to what led up to this moment, why she did this, she did that, this is owed to me. And he always feels like he's owed to something, but even though that person probably didn't owe him anything, it's a strong possibility. But bottom line is, he's always caused some kind of a chaos with somebody in his life. So he takes the money and run. So in this case, this is a pinnacle moment of Marco, which he doesn't realize that this may or may not be his final moment in terms of, not exactly living his life like he's been doing, but something much, much different. So explains at the end of the story where this woman who is concealing some kind of a package and some kind of suspicion, but again, nobody really notices. This is one of those places that no one really cares who does what per se in the neighborhood. I mean, it's a rundown neighborhood, it's a rundown kind of tenant building, and the elevator itself doesn't look very safe, and which is why not many people want to use it. Even though it's functional, not many people want to get near this thing. So it's a perfect way for people who are not exactly good in a sense, so if they want to smuggle something or whatever, chances are no one's really going to pay attention. No one's going to stop anybody to get in this elevator and do their dirty deed or whatever. In this case, this woman at the end, that's what makes this new turning point. So Marco, later on, he unfortunately realizes what he has to do at the very end. He becomes the next tenant to guide other people, their paths along of whatever it is that they've done in their life, whether it's current or past or whatever it is. The point is, they have to make that decision. And if they decide to do something better in their life, that means Marco is, once again, stuck in that elevator. So later on in the story, where we see that Marco is confused, he's going through all kinds of emotions, man. Most of the time, he's just aggravated. He just wants to get to his apartment. He wants to, get through this. He doesn't want to believe this old man and his words, and he thinks that he's manipulating him and all this other stuff. He's seen things he's never seen in his entire life, and he doesn't believe them. And some of it is real, some of it's not real per se. And he blames Gary, and that's why he tries to kill Gary, because the elevator's not working, and he thinks he's controlling it and all that stuff. So he pulls out his gun and tries to just pop him and think that's gonna rid his predicament in a way. So I wanted to kind of give a sense of the weakness for Marco, that he is so hard-headed on the situation that he just doesn't want to accept it, even though he knows what he's done, what he will be. He refuses to accept till the very end, when he realizes that when he tries to kill Gary, he disappears. And then Marco, he's confused, he's kind of scared, he's trying to open the doors, he's trying to just get anywhere necessary. He can't get through the ceiling, he can't do anything. He's trapped in this big metal box, and there's nothing else to do. There's only one other possible way that he can think of, and that's to end his own life, which unfortunately there's no bullets in the gun. And he doesn't even realize that he never had the bullets in the gun in the first place, because he already used the last bullet, the one bullet actually, on the woman at the very beginning of the story. So he doesn't really pay attention this entire time that he never actually had a full handgun of ammo, really. He just had that one bullet that he sought out to do. And then he realizes that, well, when we try to seek his own life, empty chamber. He already used all his ammo. So this is where that very last second, the very last moment of his life, that he realizes he should have made a decision of what he possibly should have been doing. And unfortunately, he chose unwisely, and he realizes his purpose is he's going to be stuck there forever until something changes, basically. So that is the whole episode is, the consciousness of the whole thing is for him to possibly understand what the surrealness of the situation is. And unfortunately, he realizes it too late, and that's it. He's the next tenant of, the guidance for the next poor soul. And, this is where Marco's story ends.